Hey guys, Alex, better known as Antigrapist here, to talk about my third Jank Tank open match. Okay, to start out again, we're going to quickly recap my squad. I'm flying a Separatist list, I'm flying a Skoan Ace, which I mostly fly as a flanker, and then Watt Tambor with Kraken and Solus 1, um, two Hyena Bombers, one with Concussion Missile and Prox Mines, one with Plasma Torpedoes. These are sort of the firepower that, Kraken helps buff with um, calculate tokens, and then a Trade Federation drone to sort of round out the four ship sort of main body of my squad. And today I'm going up against Travis, and he has a Republic list that is honestly not bad. He has Anakin Skywalker, which he flies as a flanker, and then he has two arcs and a torrent. Kickback's ability, not particularly good. And then he has Sinker, who has a really strong ability to get him rerolls. He has Wolf, which can get him rerolls and then an additional die out the back. So I looked at his previous VOD files. He flies these three ships sort of next to each other. These are sort of his sort of like jousting portion of his list, and he flies Anakin as sort of a flanker and sort of tries to close out the game with him. It's not a bad list. The arcs, I mean, they're not terrible. They're high pilot skill, which makes them pretty good against my list. Sinker's PS3, so if he wins initiative, then I can maybe get target locked on him. So like jousting isn't completely out of the question, but getting range is sort of still pretty tough. Getting the target locks to get off the plasma and concussion missiles. Only upgrade is crack shot. His squad definitely really could have used CLT on Anakin. If he had that, his list would be like super scary. But he doesn't, so it's still good, but not quite as strong as mine, I would say. So initial impressions going to this, I either wanted to like joust right away because my list is like the better jousting list, or I wanted to set up the asteroids in such a way that he couldn't get sort of the easy like fly his all three of his ships next to each other, get the rerolls with Sinker, and then like flank me with Anakin. If he sort of did that, that was how I feel like he could win, by getting that sort of opening. So that was what I tried to avoid when I set up the asteroids. Okay, so the log file starts a little bit earlier, or a little bit after the asteroid setups. So he, I think, places he places these two for sure, and then one of those two. This is, I think, at my asteroid, something like this. So one thing I want to mention, because he did win initiative, which is pretty good for me, is that means I get to place the last rock, and because my list has PS1 ships, I get to place my ships first. So this was the last obstacle I got to place, and if you place first and get to set the last obstacle, you should always decide where you're going to go with your ships first, and then place the obstacle where it's going to not be in your way at all, and like maximally disadvantage your opponent. So I could have put it in this corner, and I did think about that because then I just sort of go by it, and it's not too much in my way. But I placed it up here because if I didn't place it here, he could sort of just bring all his ships in, bank them in here, have them all next to each other, all getting those rerolls. And putting it here makes it a little bit more difficult for him to do that. Okay. Okay, so after the first round, I just sort of did two forward with my ships, and then one turn and a barrel roll backwards with my ace. At this point, I'm not really sure what he is going to do. He ends up just going two forwards, and then one bank with Anakin. So at this point, I really don't want to commit. I don't want to commit to going up this direction, and I don't want to. So yeah, I mean, I have like two good options and one sort of mediocre option. I can go up here. I can go through here. I guess I also go this way, and I can go around here the long way. And I'm not sure what he's going to do, and I'm trying to sort of slow play this and sort of figure out where I'm going to go. So that plays into the next couple moves. Unlike some of my previous games where I just go 4 forward, 4 forward, or 4 forward, 3 turn. Like this game, it takes a little bit longer before we get into any action. So yeah, this turn again, I just did 2 bank, just sort of say like it's on the slower side of the moves. It's non-committal. Like if I had gone 2 forward, it would have been really hard to turn around and get back up this lane on the outside. I still had that option now, and I'm just trying to like slow play and sort of decide, do I want to try and go through here with my formation? It's sort of, this is like, it's almost exactly 2 range lengths apart. So it's hard to fit my squad between there. My squad's, or this is a range 1 gap. And my squad, when turned up is, 2 bank lengths and about a half a base length in between. So squeezing through there is like, it's tricky. It's hard to do. One or the other side of my ships is going to end up either on the asteroid or have to move awkwardly to get past it. So I'm not thrilled about going up in there, and I want to, like I said, I'm trying to delay and figure out where he's going, and I'm trying to figure out a way to like counter that, which is tricky because he's just going forward, classic rebel or republic shenanigans. So okay, so this is round 3. I just did a 2 forward, and then I think I did like a 1 bank barrel roll with my ace. Sort of again, probably going to go through here, this gap, but depending on how fast he moves, at the time I was actually thinking I was going to go back and go up this way, which I still had the ability to do. And one thing that like helps give me this flexibility is that I have my when I had my 4-ship box down here, I put the 2 PS3 ships on the bottom, and in previous matches I sort of had them both on the back in my PS1 ships. This makes it a little bit easier if I do decide to turn around, if go back this way and go up. My PS3 ships are always sort of in the back. Okay, so like I said, I was thinking I was going to go back up this way. He wisely decides to not give me that time, and he sort of aggressively turns in. Well, they're not too aggressive, but 2 turns. And with his ships, I'm a little bit fortunate that only Kickback and Anakin are in range. Like giving your opponent free shots is never great, but at least they're only 2 dice versus 3 on my side, and I have all these calculate tokens to spend. So, end up getting pretty lucky with these like free double evades and your free triple evade. Like, I mean, it's not super likely for him to hit. I mean, I do have we get sort of the average roll of evade, focus, blank. Like I have the calculate tokens to spend. So. Yeah, so definitely not ideal, not something you want to do to give your opponent free shots. It's definitely could have been a lot worse, like if he had been able to get like Wolf or Sinker, like they're like 3 dice attacks. Like those are the attacks that like really matter and really start to like really sting. So from this position, I think my opponent thinks that I'm gonna go up this way. I mean, it sort of looks that way, right? Like it's a lot easier to go up this way. But I hadn't committed to going up that way. If I'd gone like a faster like 2 turn, then I probably would have been committed. But because Tub is sort of in the corner here, and Tub has landing struts, like I still have the option, and I do choose to. I can just 1 turn in this way, sort of ignore Sinker and focus on these ships, which are going to go a little bit faster to try and like catch my out of positionness, which I will of course try not to be out of position. Only thing I think was maybe a little suboptimal about this next upcoming move is I do a 2 turn with Segoe and Ace to try and it brings me around 90-degree turn so that I have options to shoot it like Kickback or Wolf. So if Sinker does something, weird, or I really want to focus down one of these other ships, I'll have the option to. Doing like a 3-bank would have been the stronger move, as we'll see in just a second. Okay, so we see here I did, like I said, I did 1 turns with all my ships. I do take target locks with both my bombers onto Anakin. I will say something I didn't mention because I sort of didn't show it because I'm not going through every move, is he had Anakin pointed here and he barrel rolled him in, and which gave him a shot. So there is definitely some value in doing that. But he also had the option to like barrel him out to like a 3-bank, boost. Put him in a similar position this turn, but it's like it's because he barreling him in means he's sort of committed to going in this direction, and gives me the I would like to kill Anakin early if possible, or even if not kill him early, put enough damage on him to where my opponent like plays a little bit scared, a little bit passively with him, and I can use that to advantage, as we've seen in my earlier games. So I sort of mentioned that you could do I did a 2-turn with Skull and Ace. If you'd done a 3-bank, you ended up here. It's one of the cool things you can do with Vassal is like copy the ship and then carry out the alternate move with a different squad. This move is like, it's honestly not any better. It maybe gives you a little bit more options for next turn, but you can't boost out of Sinker's Arc and still get a shot. So it's not, unlike what I thought, it's not significantly better. He did bump with Wolf, which sort of it's one of the hard things about flying arcs and the medium base ships is they're like a little bulky, a little bit trickier to move around because they move so quickly. But missing this focus action never ideal. Although he does have a free roll from Sinker, so he did like position himself pretty well. And then he played pretty smartly, but he did okay with Anakin by sort of boosting out of the arcs of these 2 ships. Makes it he's going to take some damage this turn, but it's not as bad as it could have been if he had stayed in position. So I'm not going to go through the damage rolls of this turn too much, but I did want to mention one thing here. He ends up getting a blinded pilot on Separatist Bomber, which helps a little bit for Anakin because I have a target lock and then I can't use it. So definitely a little bit annoying there. But one mistake I make is these 2 guys shoot at Anakin, right? Like he's the closer ship. He's range 1, range 2. Definitely want to like take those kind of priority shots on him when I get the chance. But Trade Federation drone only has a shot on Wolf. Tub has a range 1 shot on Kickback, range 2 shot at Wolf. Skull and Ace, range 1 shot at Sinker, range 2 shot at these guys. Skull and Ace has to shoot first, and I chose to take the premium shot into Sinker. But my other 2 ships had to take shots into Wolf. I really didn't want to take let each one of these ships take their own best shots at 3 different ships and split the damage up. Like, even though you rolled 2 extra attack dice that way, it's just like you don't win the game by splitting your damage up. You need to take ships off the board. And because Skull and Ace had to shoot first, I didn't think enough about where my other 2 ships are going to have to shoot, and I take the shot into Sinker when, if I had been shooting Wolf, I still would have put 2 to 3 damage on Wolf. In this case, I think probably 2 damage, 1.5 to 2 damage, depending on sort of the rolls. And that extra point of damage or 2 like really would matter in the next couple turns. Whereas, Sinker lives until, the end of the game. The extra damage on him doesn't matter that much. Even putting it on Kickback would have been better because Kickback's in a better position to get taken out in the next couple turns. So yeah, small optimization you can make. Think about where the rest of your ships are going to have to shoot, and try and focus fire. Definitely a big advantage to having landing struts, being able to be on this rock. Premium. It's a good position. It'll allow me to move my formation in here, and Yeah, solid move. Um, and also we can sort of think about, in planning for next turn, where I'm going to go. I guess let's talk about it after the shooting for this round. Okay, so this is probably one of the. I think I took a lot of time to think about this round because this is it's very tough to sort of figure out where you want to go with all these ships. One thing I did decide to do in Risk is I drop a prox mine with Tub. Because my ships are so closely aligned back to front, and you have one straight out the back of this ship, you can get away with doing it, but it's extremely close. If there'd been more of a gap, I would have hit Watt. I mean, there's some room there, but there's not much. Other thing to mention, Sco and Ace pretty badly hurt. I was hoping that Sinker did a fast move, and then I would both catch him with this one turn and he'd hit this prox mine. So that was my goal. Turns out the 200 IQ play is actually doing a one left turn, because as we'll see in just a moment, Sinker actually goes one forward and runs into me, and staying in place is honestly the best move. My opponent definitely, he says it in chat, he reads me to do a 3k turn. And I decide not to do a 3k turn because 3k turn is super obvious, and I don't want to be doing blue moves after that. Even though they're not terrible, but it's so obvious, and like I said, I thought Sinker was going here, so I'd be sort of getting a worse shot with no action if I did that versus instead going for the one turn. Even just going for the 2 straight would have been a pretty solid move. That is the move I should have gone for. But, hindsight is 50-50. This one turn is it's not as bad as the 3 sloop, but it's not great either. So yeah, the rest of my ships, I sort of thought for a while about, going a 3 bank or just a 2 forward or something with Separatist Bomber, and I decided instead to move 2 forward with Watt, and then sort of have Separatist Bomber do a 3 turn, and then either, it'd be great and it'd clear, or he just doesn't move at all. It's Trade Federation do the 1 turn, then he hits Watt, and he bumps back into place, and he doesn't go anywhere. Which, as it turns out, works out really well. Yeah, like he says, kickback went in here. And if I'd done a 2 straight or even the 1 turn here, he would have had no shots on me, and I would have had a free shot on kickback, and that would have been a pretty great move. Although he does Anakin, but yeah. And so this prox mine was both to catch the really fast move from Sinker, even a K turn there would have been good on Sinker. But it also is a zoning prox mine. It's hard to get value out of prox mines these days with the real change. But putting it here, Anakin now can't go through there. Sinker now can't go through there. So both of them are going to have to take sort of suboptimal lines to get value. And yeah, like I said, he definitely played a little bit scared with Anakin here. If Anakin was on full HP, Anakin probably turns in and runs into someone and takes a shot that now he can't afford to take, and so he doesn't get a shot. He doesn't get shot at, but he doesn't get a shot in return. So definitely value in trying to shoot at. Okay, so going into round 7, it's definitely sort of a longer game. We're over halfway through the game, and I've only lost Separatist Ace, and he still has not yet to lose a ship. Wolf is on 1 HP, partially as a result of taking Hull Breach into direct hit into console fire on 2 different attacks. But yeah, so Wolf is sort of he's sort of dangerously low, but not dead. This console file ends up mattering. We sort of talk about it after the game, so the optimal move you sort of want to make is you want to do a 1 forward or even a 3k turn. probably the move you'd want to make if you had a couple more HP. But because you have console fire, you're sort of forced to move away and clear it so you don't die. And you're while you're in the process of like clearing that, you're moving further and further away from the fight. You're taking fights out of your suboptimal rear arc, like all things you don't really want to do. So I sort of decide Trade Federation Drone doesn't have like a great move in this direction. I can sort of like 2-bank into kickback and get no action, or I can sort of 2K and shoot at Wolf and try and get sort of a long range snipe and just kill him off it from his 1 HP. I'm not sure if that's really the optimal move, but in retrospect, probably just going all in on kickback and being able to follow up Sinker is probably the better play. But I figured if he wasn't getting action anyway, might as well try and get a slightly better position, be out of the way of Watt, and finish off my opponent. Yeah, so let's go through this round really quickly. I do a barrel roll focus here because I'm too far over up this way, and I'm going to hit this rock next turn, or I'm going to have to do like a 1 turn, or I take the barrel roll focus because I could sort of see that I was going to have to take a suboptimal line next turn, so I might as well get the barrel roll into a better position and take like a 2-bank that I can already estimate that is going to be better than sort of the line that I'm going to have that this rock would otherwise force me to take. Important to note, Tub takes a target lock on kickback. Kickback is sort of in a bad position, sort of obviously has to 3K turn here, or be out of the fight and taking free shots. And like that's my plan going into this round, is to kill kickback. Sort of switch targets. I mean, ideally, I'm killing Wolf and kickback this round, but yeah. And then here he does a sloop with Anakin, which I again feel is a little, it's maybe a little passive, more passive than I would like. Like the downside, to be fair to my opponent, the downside of coming up in here is like Tub is like prime position, drop another prox mine right here next turn, and so it's hard to avoid that prox mine spot if you do turn in more aggressively. So yeah, definitely. So maybe this is like the better move, but it's a little more passive than I would like. But maybe it's what you have to do if you're my opponent in this situation, or you're forced to like barrel roll suboptimally to get way out here, and you still sort of don't get like the best shot in the world into my ships. So this round, right? Talk about he really wants to kill Separatist Bomber. He has 3 ships shooting at Separatist Bomber at PS 6 and 4 to kill Separatist Bomber before he shoots. 2 hits, natties. Wolf into Separatist Bomber, no actions because he cleared the console fire. 2 evades. Kickback. Sinker reroll. Trip evades. And then Sinker gets a final shot. Sinker's PS3, my ship's a PS3. So even if he gets to shoot, even if he gets the shot, even if he kills Separatist Bomber, like my ship's still gonna get to shoot. Okay, so here I'm sort of forced with this sort of tough decision. Do I spend both calculates and keep Separatist Bomber alive, or do I not spend, get Separatist Bomber shot, and have Separatist Bomber alive for next turn? And what I end up deciding is I really value these calculate tokens a lot. Like I have Kraken right here. These calculate tokens, or at least this one, is going to stick around to next turn if I decide not to spend it. And I really, really want to kill kickback. So I end up deciding like, hey, if it was just like 1 calculate token, I would have spent it to stay alive, but it's 2, and I decide not to. Which, like I said, not I don't know if it's the right move, but it's like it's close. So, but one thing I want to mention is, I mean, I say it in the chat, like these are some gross series of rolls, like rolling like something like 8 or 9 evades on like 10 green dice. Like it's pretty gross. Not a lie, but we'll sort of look at it after the game. I guess we can look at it now. If we look at the X-Wing probability calculator, it sort of has this cool thing where you can plug in everyone's shots and the actions they have and the rerolls. And, you know, if we look at my ship, I have 2 defense dice and effectively 2 calculates. It's sort of tricky because I'm 1 for sure and like 1 that I like situationally decided to spend. And if we look, if you look, the odds of actually killing me before I can shoot are honestly not that great. They're like 54%. It just looks so gross because my opponent rolls so many hits and then I roll so many evades. My opponent rolls, you know, sort of more normal number of evades, and then I roll sort of a more normal number of evades. Like we can sort of get to the same outcome without it looking quite as absurd. And then, you know, at the end, you know, he does finally get that damage through, but sort of put me in a position where I, you know, can keep that calculate and spend it on the attack. The lucky part for me, I feel like, is coming up, where I have 3 shots on kickback this turn. I have Watt, 3 dice with focus. I have Separatist Bomber, 2 dice with calculate, and potentially another calculate if I want it. And I have Tub, who does have a target lock on kickback and has a concussion missile. So it's sort of guaranteed to flip a crit face up if I do connect. Sort of luckily for me, what happens is he only gets 1 evade there, and then Separatist Bomber gets 2 hits and he rolls no evades, and he sort of dies in 2 hits. And that, honestly, is extremely lucky. So if we look at this one, sort of 2 defense dice, and then my rolls, and then my plus defense dice, and we simulate this, what we get is sort of, if I shot the concussion missile, I'm, 40% chance likely to hit it, likely to kill him. But if we look sort of before the concussion missile, this is like super unlikely. Okay, I think we say this guy had 2 calculates. I think it's a better. Look at this with calculates, sort of, really likely to kill him, 55% to kill him after the concussion missile. But before the concussion missile, still, 7.5, 8, 9% chance of doing 4 to 5 damage. Like that, it doesn't feel quite as unlikely as sort of rolling like 9 evade dice, rolling those hits and those evades. But it's honestly like the really fortunate outcome of these dice for me. Like this is like a huge advantage, just sort of having the option to keep Separatist Bomber, which I probably should have taken. But also just finishing off kickback. Like if kickback lives, kickback gets to do like a 1 or 2 turn, potentially like a more aggressive move, hit Watt, and then and then I'm forced to have Tub in this, continue to point Tub in this direction. Have Watt has to move in this direction. Potentially Trade Federation drone has to move back over here to have enough of an angle to kill him. Like it really, killing kickback is really important because it allows me to like focus on the other ships and start to move to chase them and finish them off. Which, as we'll see in just a moment, like it's really big, especially for Tub. Like if Tub was forced to just like continue to stand here and drop a prox mine or something to sort of ward off Anakin, like it's not ideal. And because I killed him in 2 shots, like now I have this free shot into sinker. And I roll hit crit, he rolls blank, and because of that sort of extra damage, now he takes a crit, which Disable Power Regulator is not the best crit in the world, but he does have to worry about this ion move in a couple turns. because he's pointing at the edge of the board in a place where he doesn't want to be forced to go one forward. So all in all, an extremely fortunate turn for me. We'll look at Lady Luck at the end of the game just to see how these dice like really shook out. But like, yeah, this is definitely a good turn. So I guess I also want to mention, where do I go next turn? Like, who do I go after next? I do have the option to Trade Federation drone to go like up this way if Wolf was going to go up this way, but let's be honest, he's probably not. Like, going down this way is probably the better line, and I really don't want to like split my ships up. I'd rather focus on killing ideally Anakin. And one of the sort of realizations I came to looking at some of the earlier log files is that getting off rocks with these landing struts is a little tricky. Like, I don't want to go too forward like that. I don't want to go. I wanted to go. Maybe I want to go too forward the last turn, but this turn I really would like to turn and shoot somewhere else. So what I come up with is, what instead if I rotate, barrel roll off, and then then I can link into the target lock to try and get a target lock calculate into Anakin. So that's sort of the clever move I come up with. My opponent thinks for sure that I'm just going to like drop a prox mine and then maybe rotate this way, which is sort of, yeah, it's the obvious play, but it's not. I'm never going to kill Anakin. Anakin's way too good at repositioning to get hit, to run into a prox mine, especially when he's this far away. So as we'll see, like this plays out to my advantage. And I ended up deciding Trade Federation drone should just come down and try and get a long range sort of ping at Anakin, and potentially give Tub another calculate token to go with his concussion missile. Okay, so I did shoot at Wolf at the end of the turn, last turn. I did get 2 hits, but he managed to get the evades necessary to stay alive. Yeah, so like I said, this turn, 2-bank, boost, focus with Watt, sort of being able to pressure Sinker. This move with Tub is something he really doesn't expect. Trade Federation drone clears his stress, puts him in a good position, but doesn't get any action because he ran into Watt. Anakin takes sort of a weird line to sort of clear his stress, like definitely going like 1 forward would have definitely given him a lot better options. But I don't think he was expecting to have to like need those options. Like he said in the chat, like something he wasn't expecting. And he does decide to do, I think, barrel roll over with his force, which, I mean, it gets him a better shot, but and gets him out of the way of this prox mine. But he could have used that force to defend or attack. And I said, my sort of good luck on the green dice still hold up. Sort of put a ton more damage into Sinker, and with my PS1 shots, like get the attack into Anakin. Sort of a little fortunate here that I'm able to, kill off Anakin. From here, the game is, essentially won. Like, there's not much you can do with both his ships on 1 HP. Like, I mean, he does definitely give it a good effort. This sort of like barrel roll into position. He definitely does do like a lot of damage. I guess it's a fair amount of damage. Like, if he'd been able to roll, the 4 hits, like he could have potentially killed Tub. Like, maybe he can win from that position if Watt just like completely rolls blanks. But like my dice hold up and I continue to finish off my opponent. So yeah, it's definitely not the way I would like prefer to win games. Like you definitely prefer to win games by like outplaying your opponent, or at least like I would describe my previous 2 games as like I didn't like, outplay them that much, but I sort of like made a little bit better decisions, made a little fewer mistakes, and sort of the game was close. This is the game that was like would have been really tough for my opponent to win. Like the dice were just so far in my favor that it's sort of hard for my opponent to come back from. That and then sort of like the arcs after they were sort of like past me, like the arcs shooting backwards, they only rolled 2 dice. Like you really need to like quickly turn them around and get the back in that front arc. And it's really hard when they only have the 1k turn. And this wolf had a console fire, and this Proximine is stopping Sinker from doing that. And Sinker is concerned about getting other ships in his side arcs for the rerolls. Like it's definitely hard for my opponent to maneuver. And yeah, those are the kind of things you have to exploit. But with dice, he's good. It's pretty easy to exploit them when all your ships are so healthy. So let's look really quickly at Lady Luck. This is a website you can get to by going to luck.listfortress.com. Originally made by Sozin, another community member took Sozin's old site that he was no longer interested in hosting and put it up in Heroku, and I made a URL for it at List Fortress. This is a site that you can take your log file, like the text from, paste it in here, and it'll give you some stats. And I think it's sort of like hard to know what you should be looking at. So I just want to point out really quickly, the things I look at are sort of how many hits and crits, what percentage of hits and crits did you get. So you can see my opponent, we drag in a calculator here. 27 hits and crits divided by 44. 61% of his red dice were, good results. Normally you'd expect to get 50%. So not bad for my opponent. I got 6 divided by, 48%, pretty close to 50%. Like nothing too exciting. Green dice, normally they roll 3 of 8 faces or evades. You get 37%. I rolled like 25 divided by 41, like 60% evades. Like that is like a gross feeling. Like, yeah, definitely you can sort of see the dice were in my favor here. Although a bunch of those were sort of on attacks that didn't matter, but enough of them weren't. They did block hits. Another thing we sort of look at is how many of my opponent's dice were sort of modified to be hits and crits. And here we can see my opponent, 44 red dice rolled after modifying them by either like rerolls or focuses. He had 40 hits and crits. %91 is like pretty good. I'm no slouch myself. Sort of a little harder to get rerolls, but 39 divided by 50 is 78%. Like that's maybe something a little bit more of a typical result if you're sort of good at modifying your results. Good action economy. So like I said, definitely green dice are my favorite. The red dice are my opponent. I don't think you can. They're definitely like above average. And I don't know. Kudos to my opponent for being gracious in chat. Like I don't know if I could have kept my cool if I felt like I had sort of played well and then the dice went so far in my favor of my opponent. I mean that is how the game is played. Like you have to put yourself in positions to get these kind of results, but sort of it's never fun to be when just the dice themselves sort of decide the games. So credit my opponent. This was a good game. He played pretty well. But yeah, hard to win when you keep rolling down at natural triple evades. Thanks, guys. And I will appreciate any comments. Let me know thoughts or suggestions on the game.